The Millionaire FastLane. Crack the code to wealth and leverage for a lifetime. Chapter 1: The Great Deception. Normal is not something to aspire to, it's something to get away from. Jodie Foster. The MTV Cribs episode that never happened. Host: Today we visit 22-year-old Big Daddy-Ho and his 8,000 square foot crib here on the beautiful Atlantic coastline live from sunny Palm Beach, Florida. So, Big Daddy-Ho, tell us about your rides. Big Daddy-Ho: Yo dog, we gots the Ferrari F430 over there with the 22-inch rims, the sick Lamborghini Gallardo over there with the custom 10-speaker stereo, and for those nights when I just wanna chillax with the ladies, the Rolls-Royce Arnage does my do. Host: So, Big Daddy-Ho, how can you afford all these gorgeous rides? And this mansion on the beach? It must have cost more than $20 million. Big Daddy-Ho: You let me tell you dog, Big Daddy-Ho got rich chilling in mutual funds and popping fat money in my 401k down at my Wingo wireless job. Suddenly, you hear a record screech off the turntable. Silence. As you can imagine, this scenario would never happen. Big Daddy's answer is preposterous and laughable. We're smart enough to know that wealthy 22-year-old kids don't get rich investing in mutual funds and stashing money in their 401ks from their job at the cell phone store. We know that people who get rich young fall into a unique subset of society: pro athletes, rappers, actors, entertainers, and famous people. Those of us outside this demography are left with the traditional advice showered upon us by financial experts. It's called get rich slow and sounds something like this: go to school, get good grades, graduate, get a good job, invest in the stock market, max out your 401k, cut up your credit cards, and clip coupons. Then someday, when you are, 65 years old, you will be rich. Get rich slow is a losing game if you want to get rich, and get rich slow is your strategy. I have bad news. It's a losing game, with your time wagered as the gamble. Do you seriously think that a guy who drives a $500,000 supercar and lives in that palatial beach estate got rich investing in mutual funds? Or clipping coupons from the local super saver? Of course we don't. So why do we give credence to this advice as a legitimate road that leads to wealth and financial freedom? Show me a 22-year-old who got rich investing in mutual funds. Show me the man who earned millions in 3 years by maximizing his 401k. Show me the young 20-something who got rich clipping coupons. Where are these people? They don't exist. They're fairy tales of impossibility. Yet, we continue to trust the same old tired gang of financial media darlings who espouse these doctrines of wealth. Yes sir, get a job, work 50 years, save, live frugal, invest in the stock market, and soon, your day of freedom will arrive at age 70, and if the stock market is kind and you're lucky, 60. Gee, doesn't this wealth in a wheelchair financial plan sound exciting? In today's tumultuous financial climate, I am shocked people still believe these strategies even work. Wasn't it the recession that exposed get rich slow for the fraud it is? Oh, I get it. If you are gainfully employed for 40 years and avoid 40% market downturns, get rich slow works. Just sit back, work, and hope death don't meet you first because, golly gee, you're going to be the richest guy in the retirement home. The message of get rich slow is clear: sacrifice your today, your dreams, and your life for a plan that pays dividends only after most of your life has evaporated. Let me be blunt, if your road to wealth devours most of your adult life, and it's not guaranteed, that road sucks. A road to wealth ruled by time, populated by crooks, cons, and corporate manipulators with your life wagered as the gamble is a dirty, rotten alley. Nonetheless, the preordained plan continues to wield power, recommended and enforced by a legion of hypocritical financial experts who aren't rich by their own advice, but by their own millionaire fast lane. The slow lane prognosticators know something that they aren't telling you: what they teach doesn't work, but selling it does. Wealth young, is it bullshit? The Millionaire FastLane isn't about being retired old with millions, but about redefining wealth to include youth, fun, freedom, and prosperity. Take this comment posted on the FastLane forum. Is it bullshit? You know, the dream to be young and live the life, to own the exotic cars, to own the dream house, to have free time to travel and pursue your dreams. Can you really get free of the rat race young? I'm a 23-year-old investment banker in Chicago, Illinois. I make a modest salary and modest commissions. By most people's standards, I have a good job. I hate it. I cruise Chicago's downtown, and I see some guys living the life. Guys driving expensive exotic cars, and I think to myself, they're all 50 or older with silver hair. One of them once told me, you know kid, when you finally can afford a toy like this, you're almost too old to enjoy it. The guy was a 52-year-old real estate investor. I remember looking at him and thinking, God, that can't be true. It's gotta be bullshit. It's gotta be. I can verify, it isn't bullshit. You can live the life and still be young. Old age is not a prerequisite to wealth or retirement. However, the real BS is thinking you can do it by the default get-rich-slow construct, at least by the time you hit your 30th birthday. Believing that old age is a precursor to retirement is the real BS. The real BS is allowing get-rich-slow to steal your dreams. Reinvent retirement to include Youth Say Retirement, and what do you see? I see a crotchety old man on a porch in a creaky rocking chair. I see pharmacies, doctors' offices, walkers, and unsightly urinary undergarments. I see nursing homes and overburdened loved ones. I see old and immobile. Heck, I even smell something musty circa 1971. People retire in their 60s or 70s. Even at that age, they struggle to make ends meet and have to rely on bankrupted government programs just to survive. Others work well into their golden years just to maintain their lifestyle. Some never make it and work until death. How does this happen? Simple. Get rich slow takes a lifetime to travel, and its success is nefariously dependent on too many factors you cannot control. Invest 50 years into a job and miserly living, then, one day, you can finish rich alongside your wheelchair and prescription pill box. How uninspiring. Yet, millions undertake the 50-year gamble. Those who succeed receive their reward of financial freedom with a stinking lump of turd, old age. Gee thanks. But don't worry, patronization rains from the heavens, these are the golden years. Who are they kidding? Golden to whom? Retirement is supposed to be life's destination of financial freedom and leisure. But if the journey devours 50 years of your life, is it worth it? A 50-year road to wealth isn't compelling, and because of it, few succeed, and those who do settle for financial freedom in life's twilight. The problem with accepted norms of retirement is what you do not see. You don't see youth, you don't see fun, and you don't see the realization of dreams. The golden years aren't golden at all but a waiting room for death. If you want financial freedom before the Grim Reaper hits the on-deck circle, get rich slow isn't the answer. Now if you're under 30, don't let this talk of retirement scare you. Like the get-rich-slow doctrines that serve them, you're preconditioned to associate retirement and the golden years with old age. It need not be this way. If you want to retire young with health, vibrancy, and hair, you're going to need to ignore society's default get-rich-slow roadmap and the gurus spoon-feeding you the slop in the trough. There is another way. Chapter Summary, FastLane Distinctions. Get-rich-slow demands a long life of gainful employment. Get-rich-slow is a losing game because the game is played with your time. The real golden years of life are when you're young, sentient, and vibrant. Chapter 2, How I Screwed Get-Rich-Slow. The object of life is not to be on the side of the masses, but to escape finding oneself in the ranks of the insane. Marcus Aurelius. Exposing the get-rich-slow dream killer as a teenager, I never gave myself a chance of becoming wealthy young. Wealth plus youth was an equation that didn't compute simply because I didn't have the physical capabilities. Common roads to wealth for the young are competitive and require talent. Become an actor, a musician, an entertainer, or a pro athlete, all familiar roads that had a big road closed sign that laughed, not a chance, MJ. So, early in life, I conceded. I gave up on my dreams. Get rich slow made it abundantly clear: go to school, get a job, settle for less, sacrifice, be miserly, and quit dreaming about financial freedom, mountainside homes, and exotic cars. But I still dreamed. It's what teenage boys do. For me, it was all about the cars, specifically, the Lamborghini Countach. The 90 seconds that changed my life. I grew up in Chicago, and was a porky kid with few friends. I wasn't interested in teenage girls or sports, but lying around in a beanbag stuffing my face with donuts while watching Tom and Jerry reruns. Parental supervision was absent. Mom divorced Dad years earlier, which left my older siblings and me to be raised by a single mother. Mom didn't have a college education or a career, unless a deep-frying job at Kentucky Fried Chicken qualified. That left me to my own indulgences, usually consumption of sweets, and the latest episode of the A-Team. My exertions were epitomized by a long broken broomstick. I used it as the TV's remote control since the real one was broken, and I was too lazy to move. When I did move, the local ice cream shop was often my target. A sugary delight was a motive I could count on. That day was like any other day. I sought ice cream. I plotted the flavor of my next indulgence and headed toward the ice cream parlor. When I arrived, there it was. I was face to face with my dream car, a Lamborghini Countach famous from the 80s hit movie Cannonball Run. Parked stoically like an omnipotent king, I gazed upon it like a worshipper beholden to its god. Awestruck, any thoughts of ice cream were banished from my brain. Posterized on my bedroom walls and drooled upon in my favorite car magazines, I was acutely familiar with the Lamborghini Countach: cunning, evil, obscenely fast, spaceship doors, and ungodly expensive. Yet, here it was just a few feet away, like Elvis resurrected. Its raw tangible grandeur was like an artisan coming face to face with an authentic Monet. The lines, the curves, the smell. I gawked for a few minutes, until a young man left the ice cream parlor and headed toward the car. Could this be the owner? No way. He couldn't have been more than 25 years old. Dressed in blue jeans and an oversized flannel shirt, with what I spied to be an Iron Maiden concert shirt underneath, I reasoned this couldn't be the owner. I expected an old guy, wrinkled, receding gray hairline, and dressed 2 seasons late. Not so. What the heck? I thought. How could a young guy afford such a kick-ass automobile? For God's sake, that car costs more than the house I live in. It's got to be a lottery winner, I speculated. Or maybe some rich kid who inherited the family fortune. No, it's a pro athlete. Yes, that's it, I concluded. Suddenly, a daring thought invaded my head. Hey, MJ, why don't you ask the guy what he does for a living? Could I? I stood on the sidewalk, dumbfounded while I negotiated with myself. Emboldened and overcome with adrenaline, I found my legs moving toward the car as if my brain weren't agreeable. In the back of my mind, my brother taunted, "Danger, Will Robinson, danger." Feeling my approach, the owner hid his trepidation with a smile and opened his door. Whoa. The car's door flung up into the sky, vertically, as opposed to swinging out sideways like a normal car. It threw me off what little game I had, and I tried to maintain my composure, as if cars with futuristic doors were standard fare. What couldn't have been more than 20 words seemed like a novel. My opportunity was here and I snatched it. "Excuse me, sir?" I nervously muttered, hoping he wouldn't ignore me. "May I ask what you do for a living?" Sensing relief that I wasn't a teenage derelict, the owner kindly responded, "I'm an inventor." Perplexed that his answer didn't match my preconception, my prepared follow-up questions were nullified, paralyzing my next move. I stood there frozen like the ice cream I had sought minutes earlier. Sensing the opportunity for escape, the young Lamborghini owner took the driver's seat, closed his door, and started the engine. The loud roar of the exhaust swept through the parking lot, alerting all life forms to the Lamborghini's formidable presence. Whether I liked it or not, the conversation was over. Knowing it might be years before such a sight would happen again, I took mental inventory of the automotive unicorn before me. I left awakened as a neural pathway suddenly smacked open in my brain. The liberation from fame and talent. What changed that day? I was exposed to the fast lane and a new truth. As for the sweets I pursued that day, I never made it into the store. I turned around and went home with a new reality. I wasn't athletic, I couldn't sing, and I couldn't act, but I could get rich without fame or without physical talent. From that point forward, things changed. The Lamborghini encounter lasted 90 seconds, but transcended a lifetime of new beliefs, directions, and choices. I decided that I would someday own a Lamborghini, and I would do it while I was young. I was unwilling to wait until my next encounter, my next chance experience, and my next poster. I wanted it for myself. Yes, I retired the broomstick and got off my fat ass. The search for the Millionaire FastLane. After the Lamborghini encounter, I made a conscious effort to study young millionaires who weren't famous or physically talented. But I wasn't interested in all millionaires, just those who lived a rich, extravagant lifestyle. This examination led me to study a limited, obscure group of people, a small subset of famous millionaires who met these criteria. 1. They were living a rich lifestyle, or were capable of such. I wasn't interested in hearing from frugal millionaires who lived next door in the middle class. 2. They had to be relatively young, under 35, or they had to have acquired wealth fast. I wasn't interested in people who spent 40 years of their life jobbing and penny pinching their way to millions. I wanted to be rich young, not old. 3. They had to be self-made. I was broke. Silver spoon winners of the lucky sperm lottery weren't invited to my lab. 4. Their riches couldn't be from fame, physical talent, playing pro ball, acting, singing, or entertaining. I sought millionaires who would have started like me, an average guy without any special skill or talent, who somehow made it big. Through high school and college, I religiously studied this millionaire divergence. I read magazines, books, and newspapers and watched documentaries of successful businessmen. Anything that provided insight into this small subset of millionaires, I absorbed it. Unfortunately, this zest to uncover the secret to fast wealth led me to disappointments. I was a late-night infomercial marketer's dream come true, gullible, willing, and armed with a credit card. I bought into countless opportunities, from one tiny classified ad to the Asian real estate mogul and his sexy bikini-clad yacht vixens. None of them delivered wealth, and despite the slick commercials and their claims, the large-breasted models never materialized. As I fed my appetite for knowledge and endured one odd job after another, my research uncovered some remarkable common denominators. I was confident I had uncovered all the components to the millionaire fast lane and fameless wealth. I was determined to become rich young, and the journey would begin after college graduation. Little did I know what lay ahead, the roadblocks, the detours, and the mistakes. Resistance into mediocrity. I graduated from Northern Illinois University with 2 business degrees. College was a 5-year prenatal employee brainwashing with graduation as the overrated climax. I viewed college as indoctrination into corporate droneship, an unfulfilled marriage between me and a life of jobs, bosses, and being overworked and underpaid. My friends were hired for great jobs and bragged about it. I work for Motorola. I got a job at Northwestern Insurance. Hertz Rental Cars hired me as a training manager. While I was happy for them, my friends bought the lie that I later define as the slow lane. You know the drill: get a good job, save, invest in mutual funds, and one day you will live a life of luxury. Me? Thanks but no thanks. I sought to avoid the slow lane like a medieval plague. My idea was to find the fast lane, retire rich and retire young. Roadblocks, detours, and depression. Despite the confidence, the next few years fell horribly short of my expectations. I lived with my mother as I bounced from one business venture to another. Success was absent. Every month was a different business: vitamins, jewelry, some hot turnkey marketing program purchased from the back of a business magazine, or some goofy long-distance network marketing gig. Despite the hard work, my record of failures grew, as did my mounting debts. Years passed and folly fermented as I was forced to take a series of Neanderthal jobs that crippled my ego: a busboy at a Chinese restaurant, yes, there are cockroaches in the back, a day laborer in the slums of Chicago, pizza delivery boy, flower delivery boy, dispatcher, limo driver, early morning newspaper delivery for the Chicago Tribune, Subway sandwich restaurant salesman, WTF, Sears stock clerk, in the freaking drapery department, charity can collector, and house painter. The only thing worse than these shitty jobs and their pay: the hours. Most required a pre-dawn start. 3 a.m., 4 a.m., if any ungodly hour was involved you could bet my job required it. 5 years of college and I graduated to live like a dairy farmer. Hell, money was so tight that I prostituted myself to an older woman to pay for my best friend's wedding gift. Yes, cougars preyed in the 1990s. Meanwhile, my friends progressed in their careers, they got their 4% yearly pay increases. They bought their Mustangs and Acuras and their 1,200 square foot townhouses. They appeared to be content and lived the expectant life preordained by society. They were normal and I wasn't. At 26 years old, I fell into depression, my businesses were not self-sufficient and neither was I. Seasonal depression gnawed at my fractured psyche. Chicago's rainy, dark, dreary weather made me crave the comfort of a warm bed and tasty pastries. Accomplishments were precluded by sunshine, so yes, I wasn't accomplishing much. Tired of the high school dropout jobs, I struggled to get out of bed, and doubt became the daily affirmation. Physically, emotionally, and financially exhausted from failure, I knew my results weren't indicative of my true self. I knew the fast lane way to wealth, but just couldn't get it executed. What was I doing wrong? What was holding me back? After all these years of research and education, complete with a closet full of books, magazines, and quick start videos, I was still no closer to wealth. I sat stalled on the sidewalk with the fast lane nowhere in sight. My deep depression sunk me into escapes, but instead of drugs, sex, or alcohol, I lost myself in books and kept studying fameless millionaires. If I couldn't be successful, I'd escape into the lives of those who were by absorbing books of the rich, autobiographies of the successful, and other rags to riches tales. But it got worse. The people in my life gave up on me. My longtime girlfriend proclaimed, "You have no resolve." She had a safe and secure job with a rental car agency, but we'd argue because she worked long hours for chump change, a whopping $28,000 a year. Of course, she rightly retorted with the facts, "You don't have a job, you make $27,000 less than me, and none of your businesses work." She was a smart cat. Our relationship ended as she found courtship with a corporate radio ad executive. And then there was my mother. For the first years after college, she cut me slack, but then came the failures and the goofy jobs. I begged patience and pleaded that wealth creation for a fast lane entrepreneur operates under an exponential scale, those who hold jobs operate under a linear scale. Unfortunately, it didn't matter how great my charts and diagrams were, Mom lost faith, and I didn't blame her. Landing a man on Mars showed more promise. Her directives dulled my drive. She'd shout, "Get a job, baby," at least 20 times a week. Ugh, even today I shudder. That phrase, shouted in that voice, could exterminate cockroaches in a post-apocalyptic world. There were days I'd want to pound my head into a vice and crush my ears into deafness. "Get a job, baby," bore into my soul. It was a motherly decree that put the trial to an end with the jury's unanimous verdict, failure, with a vote of no confidence. Mom suggested, "The grocery store is hiring a deli manager, why don't you go down there and check it out?" As if my college education and struggles for the last 5 years were to eclipse at the deli counter, cutting blocks of bologna and ladling potato salad to the neighborhood soccer moms. Thanks for the job tip, but I'll pass. My blizzard of awakening, it took the pain of a cold Chicago blizzard to throw me into the crossroads of life. It was a dark, frigid night, and I was dead tired working as a limo driver. My shoes were drenched from wet snow while I fought a migraine headache. The 4 aspirins I chased 2 hours earlier had no effect. I wanted to get home but couldn't. I was stuck in a blizzard and my usual routes were snowed in. I pulled to the shoulder of a faintly lit road and felt the cold chill of melted snow crawl up my legs from my toes. I put the limo in park and faced myself in dead silence with nothing but the fall of snowflakes to remind me how much I hated winter. I gazed at the cigarette-burned ceiling of the limousine and thought, what the hell am I doing? Is this what my life has become? Sitting on an empty road in a blizzard in the dark of the night out in the middle of nowhere, I'd had it. Sometimes clarity washes over you like a peaceful breeze, and other times it hits you over the head like a falling Steinway piano. For me, it was the latter. A sharp declaration overpowered my brain, you cannot live another day like this. If I was going to survive, I needed to change. The decision to change the harsh winter shot me into swift action. I decided to change. I decided to take control over something I thought was uncontrollable, my environment. I decided to relocate, to where, I didn't know, and at that moment, I didn't care. In an instant, I felt powerful. The velocity of that choice infused my miserable existence with hope and a small drip of happiness. My failures evaporated and I felt reborn. Suddenly a dead-end road converged with a dream. It just wasn't about the decision to move, it was about taking control and knowing that I had a choice. With this new power, I considered options that never had dawned on me. I asked a simple question, if I could live anywhere in the country without restraint, where would I live? I thought about the things important to me and circled 5 cities on a map. The next month I moved, or I should say, escaped. The merge from slow lane to fast lane, I arrived in Phoenix with $900, no job, no friends, and no family, just 330 days of sun and a burning desire to hit the fast lane. My possessions included an old mattress, a 10-year-old rusty Buick Skylark with no third gear, a few side businesses that made little cash, and several hundred books. Ground zero for my new life was a small studio apartment in central Phoenix that rented for $475 per month. I transformed my studio apartment into an office. No bedroom set, no furniture, just a mattress that invaded the kitchen. I slept with Pop-Tart crumbs, a side effect of laying a mattress next to the kitchen counter. I lived poor and without security, but I felt rich. I was in control of my life. One of the many businesses I created was a website. While driving that limo in Chicago, sometimes I'd sit idle for hours and had plenty of downtime to read books. I didn't waste that time. While I waited for clients at the airport, or while they got obliterated at the local watering hole, I sat in the limo and read. And read. I studied everything from finance to internet programming to more autobiographies of the rich. The limo job did something special. It put me at the forefront of an unsolved need that needed a solution. One of my limo clients asked if I knew of any good limo companies in New York. I dropped the passenger off at the airport, but he left me with a seed of invention. If I lived in Chicago and needed a limo in New York, where would I go to find it? I didn't have a New York Yellow Pages handy, and surely no one else outside of New York did either. Faced with this question, I concluded that other travelers would have the same challenge. So I built a website that would solve this problem. Naturally, the internet has no geographical limits, so this venture traveled to Phoenix well. But, like my prior businesses, it didn't make a lot of money. However, now it was different. I was naked in a strange town with no money, job, or safety net. I had to focus. I aggressively marketed my website. I sent out emails. Cold called. Mailed letters. I learned search engine optimization, SEO. Because I couldn't afford books, I visited the Phoenix Library daily and studied internet programming languages. I improved my website and learned about graphics and copywriting. Anything that could help me, I consumed. Then one day I had a breakthrough. I received a call from a company in Kansas that raved about my website service and wanted me to design its website. While my focus wasn't web design, I obliged for a price of $400. They thought the price was a steal, and within 24 hours, I had built the company its website. I was ecstatic. In 24 hours, I had most of my rent payment. Then, coincidentally, not 24 hours later, I received another call from a company in New York asking for the same thing, a new website. I designed it for $600, and it took me 2 days to complete. I had another rent payment. Now, I know this isn't a lot of money, but from poverty to $1,000 in 3 days felt like winning the $50 million Powerball. My first few months in Phoenix I gained traction and survived on my own for the first time in my life. No flower boy. No busboy. No pizza delivery. No sponging off mom. I was purely self-employed. I was momentous acceleration, a wind at my back that foreshadowed a directional change into a new universe of wealth generation. But something still wasn't right. Something was missing and I knew it. Most of my income was attached to my website designs and not my website advertising business. My income was tied to my time, the construction of websites. More websites jobs meant more time spent, and if I didn't work, my income would stop. My time was being sold off for money. A new wealth equation yields wealth acceleration in the winter. A friend visited from Chicago. I showed him my web directory, and he was amazed at all the traffic my service received. I'd get limo price inquiries from around the world, every minute of the day. How much for a limo from Boston to Worcester? How much from JFK to Manhattan? We'd scan my email inbox, and it had 450 emails. 10 minutes passed, click refresh, and then there would be another 30 emails. Emails were pouring in several per minute. He suggested, dude, turn those emails into money somehow. He was right, but how? And how can it solve a legitimate need? He left me with this challenge, and I was intent to solve it. Days later, I created a risky and proven solution, and I gave it a shot. What did I do? Instead of selling ad space, I decided to sell leads. There was a problem though. This revenue model was new and groundbreaking. Additionally, I had to convince my customers that this method of business was beneficial to them, and I had no data to predict whether it could succeed. Remember, this was the late 90s, when lead generation in web space was unfounded, at least until I went out and did it. Nonetheless, I took the risk and implemented it. In the short term, I expected the change to kill my income, and it did. I predicted its success would take months, if it worked at all. The first month the new system generated $473. Yikes. I built more websites to fill my income gap. The second month's revenues were $694. Third month, $970. Then $1,832. $2,314. $3,733. And it continued and continued. It worked. My revenue, my income, and my assets grew exponentially, but not without issue. As traffic grew, so did the complaints, the feedback, and the challenges. Improvements came directly from customer suggestions. Within days, sometimes hours, I'd implement customer ideas. I was known to answer my clients' emails within minutes, if not an hour. I learned to be receptive to the consumer, and business exploded. The workdays became long and challenging. 40 hours was a vacation, typical work weeks were 60 hours long. Days and weekends blurred together. While my new friends were out drinking and partying, I was hunkered down in my tiny apartment, regurgitating code. I didn't know if it was Thursday or Saturday, and it didn't matter. The glory of the hard work was this: it didn't feel like work, in fact, I enjoyed it. I didn't have a job, I had a passion to make a difference. Thousands of people benefited from something I created, which addicted me to the process. I made a difference. I started to compile testimonials from clients. Because of you, my business grew tenfold. Your website led me to my biggest corporate client. Your company has been instrumental in growing my business. This feedback was wealth currency. I wasn't awash in riches quite yet, but I felt rich. My faked shortcut to wealth in 2000, my telephone rang with a different type of inquiry. Technology startups called, they wanted to know if I would sell my business. In that year, the dot-com frenzy was in full force. Not a day went by without a tall tale about some dot-com millionaire who struck it rich by selling a tech property. Remember the famous millionaires? This subset of the rich grew at a staggering rate, and the wave swelled my way. So, did I want to sell my company? Hell yes. I had 3 offers to sell. Offer 1, $250,000. Offer 2, $550,000. Offer 3, $1,200,000. I accepted offer 3 and became a millionaire, instantly, well, almost. It didn't last. At the time, I thought $1.2 million was a lot of money. It wasn't. Taxes. Worthless stock options. I made mistakes and invested poorly. I bought a Corvette, hoping it would make me look rich. I thought I was rich, but I really wasn't. By the time it was over, I had less than $300,000 left. The tech bubble arrived with unforgiving consequences, at least for buyers of my company. Against my recommendations, they made poor decisions that were good for short-term revenue, but horrific for long-term growth. They flushed money down the toilet as if there were an endless supply. Do we really need custom-branded water bottles? And logo t-shirts? Are these revenue-generating actions? Decisions were made slowly and by committee. Customers were ignored. Incredulously, most of the company's executive management had Harvard MBAs, proof that the business logic doesn't come with expensive initials after your name. Despite having $12 million in venture capital to buoy the storm, my website slowly started to die. A few months later, near the cliff of bankruptcy, it was voted that my website would be dissolved, even though it was still profitable. Tech buyers dried up and stocks were in the tank. Everyone was on life support, including them. Unwilling to watch my creation fade into oblivion, I offered to repurchase my website at a fire sale price, a mere $250,000, financed by its own profit. The offer was accepted and I regained control of the same company I had just sold a year earlier. Essentially, I'd operate the business, take the profit, and pay down the carryback loan. What was left over I reinvested into the business. With my company back in my control, a new motivation surfaced, to not only survive the dot-com crash, but to thrive. The birth of the money tree. The next 18 months, I was revitalized to take my service to the next level. In hindsight, I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't just some lucky chap who got caught up in the dot-com boom. I continued to improve my website. I integrated new technologies and listened to customers. My new passion was automation and process. As I streamlined my processes and systems, a slow and steady transformation took place. I worked less and less. Suddenly, I worked an hour a day instead of 10. Yet, the money rolled in. I'd go to Vegas on a gambling spree, the money rolled in. I'd be sick for 4 days, the money rolled in. I'd day trade for a month, the money rolled in. I'd take a month off, the money rolled in. Then I realized what I achieved. This was the fast lane. I built myself a real, living, fruit-bearing money tree. It was a flourishing money tree that made money 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and it didn't require my life for the trade. It required a few hours a month of water and sunshine, which I happily provided. Outside of routine attention, this money tree grew, produced fruit, and gave me the freedom to do whatever I wanted. For the next few years, I lived a life of laziness and gluttony. Sure, I worked a few hours a month, but mostly, I worked out, traveled, played video games, bought and raced fast cars, entertained myself with dating websites, gambled. I was free because I had a money tree that surrogate for my time and yielded a bountiful monthly harvest. Since reclaiming my business, it grew mediocrely. Some months I'd profit more than $200,000. Yes, profit. A bad month was $100,000. I earned in 2 weeks what most people earned in an entire year. Wealth poured in and I was flying low on the radar, no fame. If you earned $200,000 every month, how would your life change? What would you drive? Where would you live? What vacations would you take? What schools would your children attend? Would debt be a noose around your neck? How fast would you become a millionaire? 4 months or 40 years? Would grabbing a $6 coffee at Starbucks be an issue? You see, when you generate this kind of income, millionaire status happens quickly. I was a multimillionaire by age 33. If I hadn't sold my business initially, I would have probably arrived there faster, but when you're eating cardboard noodles and someone tosses $1.2 million in your face, not many would say, nah, I'll pass. I purchased my first Lamborghini and completed the dream prophecy birthed in my teens. Today, that same question I asked so many years ago is now sent my way almost weekly. And now I have an answer that I can give, and an answer I would have dreamed of hearing. In 2005, I decided to sell my company again. It was time to retire and think about my wildest dreams, things like this book and screenwriting. However, this time I entertained a variety of offers, ranging from $3.3 million to $7.9 million. After making millions over and over in a few short years, I accepted one of the full cash offers and repeated the fast lane process in 10 minutes. That's how long it took to cash the 6 checks that amounted to millions. Chapter summary: Fast lane distinctions. Fame or physical talent is not a prerequisite to wealth. Fast wealth is created exponentially, not linearly. Change can happen in an instant.